when you are in the process of balancing these energies, like I said, you're balancing the light and the dark. If there is too much light, there needs to be shadow to balance it out. So with your energy, you basically are creating the balance in whatever way it needs to happen. There are times when actually the best thing for a situation is to have the darkness come in. And we as humans are so challenge averse that we don't like to hear that. We don't like to hear that sometimes darkness needs to come in to balance things out. Welcome to the Akashic Recordings. I'm Annette Dalloo, Akashic conduit, channel, and spiritual guidance coach. I want to thank you for joining me today. The Akashic Recordings is created through the cooperation of my clients who have agreed to have their sessions recorded. Of course, with their permission, I am able to share these beautiful sessions with you. If you are interested in booking a session with me, you can go to my website at infinitesoullove.com. Annabelle came to me with some questions about her soul purpose. There was some confusion surrounding what her soul origins were and what her real soul purpose is. She was also struggling with some ideas about darkness and shadow that had been expressed to her by other people and things that she had felt as a child. So we explore the balance of the shadow and the light.
I have a lot of visions certain times in meditation, and I'm getting better at it. And then I have a lot of messages from my dreams, and I definitely have a connection with the Melchizedek, and I feel the angels, and I have a lot of people telling me there's angels following me around, and I'm wondering, am I an angelic being in incarnation in human form? I was in a lot of psychedelic moments, but one of them was where I was literally transported up to a place with a lot of interdimensional beings that are cloaked, and it was like a council of people and gathering, doing something like a meeting, and I wonder what that's about. If there's anything more I like clarification on.
Looking at your chakra system, there's very little that needs to be cleared. Your sacral looks really good as well. It's like in the same vein as the root, very focused energy, very bright. There's one little tiny dark spot, and they're saying that this is from this current lifetime. I am getting that you have been through your ascension process already. This is the lifetime you're incarnated in at this moment. Your purpose is not to ascend, and I can see that already in your chakras. Usually when I see chakras this clean, that does have an indication of being either an angelic or another higher level being.
That's interesting because other healers have said that my root chakra needed a lot of energetic healing. So I might have done the work in the past couple of years.
The one distinction they want me to make for you right now is when I do these chakra scans, what I'm looking for is past life things. So I'm looking for any sort of traumas, any sort of things you're holding on to from past lives, anything that needs to be cleared. We'll dive into a little bit more of this in your soul's purpose and life purpose. But basically what this indicates to me, usually when somebody has such squeaky clean chakras, when it comes to looking into what is past, that does typically mean that they have some sort of purpose here that is a higher purpose in terms of angelic work. Sometimes it's higher level beings, seraphims, things like that. So we'll kind of take a look at what your soul's origin is, and so we can get a better and clearer picture of that.
Okay.
What they were showing me is that you do have things that accumulate in your chakra system from this lifetime, but it doesn't stick around for very long. So all you have to do is do the little bit of work to clear them, and it clears very easily. They're showing me it's like Teflon. Not a lot sticks to it very readily, but obviously you do have your human experiences here in this lifetime. And so it does affect the chakras, obviously. as long as you're doing the clearing work that you need to do, keep your chakras clear, you'll be able to keep them clear.
Okay.
Okay, so then let's move that energy, that Gaia energy, up to your solar plexus chakra. So that one is also very strong, very directed. The left side has a little shadow over it.
My feminine side.
And I'm hearing that it's not something you're used to. It's not something that has been something that you've experienced in recent previous lifetimes. This is something new that you were not sort of expecting to experience in this lifetime. And so we'll take a look at what that might be. And then let's move that Gaia energy up to your heart chakra. They're showing me the heart chakra like a really beautiful, bright rainbow crystalline light. Yeah, it's beautiful. Okay. Your third eye is quite focused on certain things. Like instead of seeing the wider picture or the bigger picture of things, it's like you're seeing bits and pieces of things. And so that's where a lot of the confusion is coming in because you're not getting the whole picture. Okay. That has a little bit to do with your crown, but it also has to do with, there's a bit of forcing going on. So when you get information, you're trying to make sense of it all and you don't have to right away. You can just wait till more information comes. So don't worry about making sense of everything that comes in. Just kind of like tuck it away for later, almost like putting it in a little filing cabinet and saying, I have this bit of information and I know it'll become clear to me at some point, but I'll just kind of tuck that away for now, as opposed to trying to find it. Okay, so then let's move that energy down into your throat chakra. Again, I'm seeing like a crystal blue light. Okay, so I want to thank Akula, my Akashic guide, for being here. And I want to thank Archangel Metatron and Archangel Sandalphon for also being here, allowing us access to the Akashic records. Okay, so they're guiding me to look at the soul purpose first. Okay, so we're looking at the lifetime you had when you actually did complete your ascension. So they're showing me time frame. And I think this is important for a couple of reasons, because there were several people on the planet at the time who were completing their ascension process at roughly the same time. And of course, we all know of one of them, which was Jesus. He completed his ascension. And then there were many others like scattered throughout the planet who completed their ascension process at the same time. And then also like 5 to 10 years to 15 years after that, there were others that were also completing their ascension process. So it was a particular period of time that allowed for this ascension to happen. The energies were just right. The connections to the souls that you were just right. And you were the pioneers of this energy. So they're showing you to me sort of on the other side of the globe from where Jesus was. They're literally turning the globe all the way around to the other side.
Is that India?
Mongolia?
Oh.
They're making a comparison, but only because they want to show me the contrast. So whereas Jesus would talk to a lot of people and help a lot of people and sort of teach them the ways of ascension, you were just sort of going within and you were staying to yourself. Your ascension process was a lonely one. It was one that you just continued on your own.
Okay.
You didn't know what was happening to you sometimes. I'm seeing you sit in meditation and I'm seeing your whole body just like convulse and shake. And that was simply the energy that was moving through your body at the time. And you didn't quite understand it, but you knew that it was part of an important process. You knew that you saw things differently than everybody else did. You saw love where others saw hatred. You saw peace and how peace could be achieved, and nobody believed you. And that was part of the reason why you kept to yourself, is because you would say these things to people. You would say, but if you just did these things, you could bring peace to your country. Why wouldn't you do that? And everybody else was still in their wounding saying, well, this person did that to me and that person did that to me. And so you're trying to impart this upon certain people and they weren't listening. And so you just decided that it wasn't worth pushing. It wasn't worth telling people that they had to do one thing or another when they weren't willing to do it. So you let that go. You had a daughter in that lifetime. And I should mention that you were a man in this lifetime. You had a great love for your family, but they didn't understand you entirely. Your daughter was the one person who understood you. She was like the embodiment of unconditional love. You taught her the ways of ascension, and she was not far behind you in her ascension process, which is why you were able to really connect with her easily. Your wife didn't understand you too much. She wondered what you did all day because you were in meditation so often. that she was just basically saying to you, like, you don't do anything. Like, what do you do? And you're like, I do a lot, actually. I'm doing quite a bit. And you tried to explain to her that you were astral traveling, that you were going into other dimensions, that you were helping people in other places and other times. And she couldn't grasp the concept. She was very much rooted in the 3D. But that was by design, because you needed somebody in your life who would ground you into the earth while you finished this ascension process. You understood who she was, and you didn't hold it against her that she was not able to really understand you. There were few people on earth who did. Of the people who went through their ascension process at this time, they were scattered throughout the globe, and so you didn't know anyone else like you. There were fights going on, there were battles going on, there was war, there were all kinds of things happening. And what you did was you sat in meditation, supplication, and you sent energy into those areas to calm the energy, to help balance the energy, to give a better outcome. And this is what people did. People would come to you and ask you if you could help send healing energy to a particular situation. You didn't do this too often, though, because the things that people were asking for were, for the most part, trivial. You didn't want people coming to you and just saying, oh, can you make this person fall in love with me? Or can you bless my family with 5 children? Those types of things were important to the people, but that it wasn't what your job was. That's not what you were there to do. You were there to have an effect on the energy of larger events. You only saw certain people who would report this information to you so you could affect change based on the stories that you would hear from these other people. Do you have any questions about this lifetime so far?
No, it sort of makes sense to me why I feel so lonely. And based on what I understand with astrology, I keep looking for a soulmate, and it's like this loneliness and that fear of being misunderstood, and that I couldn't speak up anyway with my family. And it feels very similar.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing a lot of in this particular lifetime we're looking at, which I was speaking about your wife in that lifetime. You would talk to her, but anything you would talk to her about when it came to your spiritual work, she had no idea. Like, she couldn't relate to any of it. So you really couldn't talk to her about it. You could talk to your daughter about it, though. That was your closest bond. And that is the soul that you're actually looking for right now, is this soul that was your daughter.
Okay.
This is a soul that you have been very close to for millennia. They were on their ascension process at around the same time you were, and ascended not long after you did. I'm getting they had one more lifetime after the lifetime they had with you in the Mongolian lifetime. This is for lack of a better term, a soulmate situation.
Right. And soulmates can be romantic or non-romantic. So.
Correct. The reason why you feel that it might have been a twin flame is because you actually do come from the same origin point. Your soul does. So when we break off from divine source energy and individualize as souls, we do so in various different ways. So maybe we will just break off with a soul family, and that's how most people that are on their ascension process now, that's how we've done it. So we break off with a soul family. We have a soul family, and we're working on particular things like forgiveness or unconditional love. And so for you, though, because of the way that your soul was broken off from divine source energy, it was in order to anchor in these lessons and this ascension process onto the earth. That is the main reason why you broke off from divine source energy. And so there were others, as I mentioned, and that at that time, you all sort of broke off at around the same time. So you have roughly the same energy. It just so happens that the soul that was your daughter, your souls connected in the first lifetime of incarnation on this planet. And you just very much enjoy each other's energy and company. And so you decided to walk this path together.
Okay.
And they are incarnated in this current lifetime.
Have I met them yet?
You have not. You will know. There will be not a single question in your mind. It will be like coming home. They're showing me the previous lifetime where you were the father and they were the daughter. I'm just seeing you hug her And in that hug is like an immense amount of energy. And you both feel it and you know it. And it's just instantaneous. What other messages do you have for us about the soul origin, please? One of the big themes she was working on at the time was the balancing of energy. It is how we were describing how she was trying to affect events at the time to bring balance to them. And bringing balance doesn't always mean that there's going to be a positive outcome. Balance simply means exactly that. That if there is too much light or too much darkness, that needs to come into balance. She needed to balance that energy within herself first. And then she was able to help others and help events and help the planet with that balancing of energy. With that balancing of energy, it is about keeping that steady pace of not only learning and growing, but ascending at the same time. Okay, so when she ascended, did she become an angelic at that point? She did. Okay. Where is her soul now in terms of that? Because that was obviously many, many lifetimes ago. So how many lifetimes has she incarnated since then? Because one thing I want to bring to your attention, after you complete your ascension process, you don't need to come back to Earth again. But clearly you've chosen to for whatever reason. So we'll see how often you've incarnated. Okay, so is she in her second ascension process? She is. Okay, that's what it is then. Okay, all right. The way I like to describe this is like you graduated college and now you're in your graduate program.
Okay.
So you completed your ascension and now you're in your second process of ascension. This is how you get to the higher angelic realms. It's how you are able to then sort of return to source with more information and more experience than you initially had. Okay, so in this graduate program, if you will, what is she accomplishing? Her sole purpose in this lifetime is to be able to anchor in this balancing ability through templates on the planet, helping balancing timelines and events that are happening throughout the world. If you want to look at her like a conductor of an orchestra, that is the nature of her energy. She is conducting all of the different energies, trying to keep them in harmony and balance. She does this by simply existing. There's not a lot she needs to do. These are templates that she's handing down to each person she comes across. They will do with those templates what they will. That is not her concern as to what they end up doing with them, but it is her job to sort of disseminate the information as needed. Okay. And what's really beautiful is that your energy is doing one thing right now. But once you connect with your soulmate, it's going to create a whole other energy that will actually amplify what you're here to do. So your soulmate's soul mission is a complement to yours. And it's like when you pull them together, it creates something bigger and more harmonious than when you're apart. And it's not to say that you don't do everything you need to do on your own. It's just an amplification. You'll see when you meet them, their energy is going to be different than yours, but complementary in almost every way.
My small self wants to ask if it's a male or if it's romantic.
Oh, yeah. Yes. But you already knew that. You feel it in your heart. You know it. There's a longing there that you've known for a while. And the reason why you haven't met yet is simply because you both needed to be sort of woken up to the knowledge of who you are. A lot of these things that they're saying about you and the soul, it sounds very, very twin flamey, right? There's a lot of parallels there. But they're saying the one biggest distinction is that it's not like you are helping each other on your ascension process because you've already been through it. You've already done it. So the first one you've already done. This one is about like joining forces and amplifying what you can do. And oftentimes with the twin flame journey, you're in a lot of shadow. There's a lot of transmutation. There's a lot of challenge and contrast that happens during those connections. And when I'm seeing the two of you together, there's none of that. There's no back and forth of wounding and all of that stuff. It's just all very harmonious, which is good news for you.
Yeah, I've been through very challenging relationships that has a lot of wounding.
Yeah.
I mean, in this lifetime, I feel like I've already done that.
Yeah. And you don't need to go through that anymore. They're showing me the shadow in your solar plexus and then that little dark spot in your sacral. And they're saying that that's what it's from, actually. So those challenging relationships that you had, that energy is from those. And it's sort of on its way out. That's why I was seeing it's just a little speck and then it's like a little shadow. And it's just kind of starting to finally fully dissipate. Okay. Do you have any questions thus far about your soul purpose and about your soul origin? Anything else?
So I just be who I am here in 3D and let my energy do the balancing. I don't have to basically think about in human form how to balance this.
Correct.
Okay.
You've got a lot of information going on in the background. So they're saying it's almost like a processor on a motherboard. You're just living your life. You're just doing your thing and you've got this processor in the back just running all kinds of things, running energy, balancing energy and doing all these things. What happens though when this happens for you is that ultimately you do have a lot of energy. Like you don't really need to replenish your energy that often. But occasionally, if you happen to be around people who are draining your energy on top of that, that's when it can really deplete you. Make sure that when you're around people who are depleting your energy, that you put up your bubble of protection, that you take time for yourself, that you do the things you need to do to take care of your own energy. They're showing me a lifetime with this other soul, and they're saying that it is significant. For whatever reason, we're going to sort of dive into it for a second. Hold on. The lifetime that they're showing me is not too long ago. They're saying it was 5 lifetimes ago. You had apparently, for a majority of the lifetimes that you had in the past, you were incarnated as a man. And so in the last several lifetimes, you've been incarnating as a woman. And this was one of the first. I'm not saying it was the first, but it was maybe in the first few. I see your soulmate almost catching you and comforting you and helping you understand what you're feeling and what you're going through. He's being very, very supportive. You're questioning your decisions because you incarnated also with a family in this lifetime of a lot of chaos. Like the family that you incarnated in was definitely not aligned with who you were, but you did that on purpose because you wanted to have some imbalance so you could work that balancing muscle a little bit more. I'm seeing your sister in that lifetime she's just a mess. She's kind of everywhere all at once. She can't focus on anything in terms of like what she wants. So she's just sort of flitting about and making all these really rash and weird decisions. And you're just like, what is she doing? And then your parents are encouraging her and like, they're kind of all over the place. And you're like, why is this my life? Like, why have I chosen this? And so your soulmate came in pretty early on in that lifetime because he was like the one piece of stability that you had. He's like the calm in the storm. And it's funny because I'm seeing him go to your house and he sees your parents and he sees your sister. And like just seeing him, your entire family is like calm. They're like, oh, he's here. Oh, hi, how are you? We love you. You're amazing. And you're just like, what the hell? Like, why is my family like this with him, but not with me? It's just the nature of your soulmate's energy. Your soulmate has this energy that has an instant calming effect. He just knows how to diffuse any situation.
I feel like I need that in this lifetime too. It's not chaotic, but it's confusing and delusional.
Got it. Yeah. And I think they wanted us to see that particular lifetime because it's going to help how he's going to fit into your life. And they're also saying like, when you meet him, don't be afraid to introduce him to your family because they're going to have that same calming feeling from him that they did in this previous lifetime. I don't want to introduce him because he's going to be like, what's going on with your family? But that's not going to be the case. He's going to embrace them with open arms.
That's reassuring.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the questions you had was about karma. And I have a slightly different belief about karma. My belief and what I've seen in the records is that we don't ever have to pay back what we've done. That's not really how it works. But I'm very interested as to why you asked that question. And it makes sense as to why you asked that question because your soul's signature is to find balance in everything. So it makes sense why you were wondering that. But can you tell me a little bit about why you wanted to ask that?
I guess it's more coming from a point of view of the shadow work and acknowledgement I have to do for myself, going through hard relationships. And I guess my small self just don't want to do that. And it's like the karma and the contracts. But I do understand that the karma is just there to learn.
Yeah.
There's no bad or good about it in that sense. If there's any more contracts I have with other souls that I'm supposed to do something for them that doesn't feel good so I can learn a lesson. And I assume there isn't anymore because it's like I've been through that cycle, and the archangels have said next year is going to be different. So I assume that applies to me, where all these hard contracts with people are done and over with.
They are.
Yeah.
That's why I'm seeing so remember the shadow and that little dark spot I was seeing in your chakras? Mm-hmm. That when I said that they were moving out, that's exactly what it is. So once those are fully out, then you're sort of in the clear, so to speak. You needed some of those experiences, because you're flexing your muscles, so to speak, of balance. You're practicing them and you're sort of getting into that space of going into harder and harder lessons so you can still keep that balance. The other aspect of it is that you are still living a human life. If you were to come down here and be in your full expression of who you are as an angelic, you wouldn't be able to connect to anyone, no one. And it would be very hard for you to live the life that you had chosen. So in order for you to sort of, and I hate to say it this way, it's almost like you're lowering your energy a little bit in order to be able to relate to what is going on in your 3D world. That is essentially what is happening. And I mean, that's what every soul does when they incarnate on this planet. They have to lower their energy in order to exist here. But the difference is most people who are on the planet, they don't do it purposely. It just happens because of all the past life stuff and all the wounding and all the things that they have to actually get through, because you don't have that naturally because of your angelic nature. It's like you almost have to create that in a lifetime to be able to ground you here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess the self-doubt is allowing other people who studies astrology, like my ex-boyfriend, he studies astrology, and he keeps telling me that my South Node Scorpio has done a lot of abusive things in the past, and therefore I have to watch out for this tendency in this lifetime. So I feel like the darkness is, he's like pointing to me, this is the darkness, watch out for your darkness. I guess I felt like I assumed that cloaking, I guess I assumed that template of I've done some abusive power sexual things in the past and I'm trying to get rid of that this lifetime.
I'm going to ask you something. So can you just connect into your heart? And I want you to ask your heart if that is true for you.
I get a no.
Right.
But I don't know if that's a defensive, no, of course it didn't happen.
No, I'm also getting a no. You have had, I don't want to say abuse of power in past lives. And actually they're saying that we will dive into one of these lifetimes so you can get a context. But when you are in the process of balancing these energies, like I said, you're balancing the light and the dark. If there is too much light, there needs to be shadow to balance it out. So with your energy, you basically are creating the balance in whatever way it needs to happen. There are times when actually the best thing for a situation is to have the darkness come in. Mm-hmm. And we as humans are so challenge averse that we don't like to hear that. We don't like to hear that sometimes darkness needs to come in to balance things out. With some of the things that you have done, it is actually pulling in the darkness to balance things out, can be looked at as an abuse of power.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I also have this fear of my own darkness. I would go into psychedelic journeys where I would see really horrific things, entities, and the shamans would remove it. And sometimes it is, I believe it's something of my experience that I just don't want to see. And I think that's part of something that I need to not be afraid of.
Okay, so before we go into that previous lifetime that they want to show us, I actually want to tap into this real quick. And I want to see what's coming up for you in this, because it is important to address. When it comes to taking plant medicine, as you call it, it is a bit like the Wild West, because everybody's energy is different. Things like ayahuasca or any other hallucinogen is going to create certain things for certain people that are helpful and that help them clear the shadows that they have already within them. The problem with taking these things for you is that because your energetic body has already ascended, you are forcing your energy into lower energies when you take these hallucinogens. This is not your darkness you are witnessing. This is a collective darkness that you are witnessing. When Annette was telling you about how you had to lower your energy to be here on this planet, that is absolutely correct. The problem with plant medicine for you is that it lowers your energy even further. The purpose of these medicines is to be able to dive into the shadow that you have in order to clear it. But you don't have these shadows at this moment. So what you dive into is the collective shadow. This is what you are fearful of. The fear comes in where you don't feel like you are going to be strong enough to balance out that collective shadow. And that is not for you to decide whether you're strong enough or not. Your energy simply knows when it is strong enough to handle a particular situation. If it cannot, it will move on to something else. We are not discouraging you from partaking in plant medicine, but we will ask you to use caution, given the fact that your energy is much higher resonance than most. And you could be attracting some things to you that you don't need in your life and in your energy field. It is not detrimental to you or harmful. It is just something that you would have to clear after the fact. It's what the shamans cleared from you. It was simply entities that were attaching to you because you were on that journey. It was part of the collective energy. Okay. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
So the thing is that it's not to say that we don't have shadow and we don't have darkness. And they're not saying that you don't. But what they're saying is that the darkness and shadow that you're afraid of, it doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the collective, and it belongs to your job, so to speak, of balancing and that fear of not being able to do so. Some of those fears are rooted in some of the past lives before you went through your ascension process that kind of stuck around with you as a reminder of who you are and what you've been through, but it's nothing to be concerned about. Okay, so let's take a look at that past life that they want to show us. It'll just give you some context. Is this lifetime pre-first ascension? Yes. Okay. So I'm just going to start describing what I'm seeing. I love when they like kind of open up a scene with something really weird and I'm like, oh, that's fun. Okay. I don't know what that is. So initially I'm seeing you climb up a palm tree and you get to the top of the palm tree and you have a coconut and you're throwing it down to your friend. And for a brief second, you were just like this close to just lobbing it at his head. And like you threw it very strongly, very forcefully, not in a friendly sense, like just kind of almost in an anger way. And your friend at the bottom of the tree is like, hey, dude, well, like, what's going on? Why are you throwing coconuts at my head? And you're like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Like, and you like, there was that little voice inside you that was like, yeah, you knew you meant to do that. It was a little sneaky, a little
passive aggressive.
Yeah, exactly. So you come climbing down from the tree and it's like, you know, that there are no punishments for actions. Okay. You've gotten to this place in your ascension process where you know that God does not punish. And when people get to that place in their spiritual journey where they know that they're not going to be punished for what they do, but it is a self-punishment, if you will, if you end up in the guilt and shame and all of those things for things that you do. And that basically our moral compass is created by our own self-love and by our love within ourselves. It's not because somebody outside of us is telling us that we have to do this or we're going to be punished. And so you were in this place of starting to figure this out and starting to understand that that's how the universe worked. In that moment of lobbing the coconut at your friend's head, you were just like, oh, there's no consequences for this. I could just chuck this at his head. He could be injured, he could die, but it wouldn't matter. like nothing would matter. You're in that really interesting void space of understanding that there are no consequences to actions, as, let's say, religions state that there are. So you really played with the shadow in that way in that lifetime. You didn't do anything super horrible, but you had really, really horrible thoughts in a lot of ways. So there were some thoughts that came in of like, you had to work in a particular place where you had a lot of people who were sort of under you. You were like for lack of a better term, you were like a foreman. So you had a lot of people who were building for you and doing these things. And this guy who was helping you with the coconuts, like he was actually your partner. So you started being really underhanded about things. I'm seeing you play favorites with some of your employees. Like you would give some more like compensation, or you would give yourself more compensation. There's like little cheating here and there. And it was because you were really testing that boundary of what is right and what is wrong. You were not feeling all that guilty about it until your friend caught you in giving yourself more than you were giving him. And he was really, really, really hurt. He was very hurt. That was the moment where you learned that lesson of why we do things in a heart-centered way and why we don't give into the darkness and things like that. It's because of the relationships that we have with people. It's about the love that we have for people and that we don't want to see our loved ones hurt. And so this was part of your exploration into that. Because of this, you never quite dove into that super shadowy darkness. It's not to say you haven't ever done that. We've all been pretty horrible people at some point in our trajectory on this planet, but we're talking about in the latter part of your ascension process here. And so that's not a place that you would have ever gone. So you may have entertained it. You may have had those thoughts, but ultimately the choice that you made was to course correct and live in a more heart-centered way. Okay. So how did that land for you?
That explains a lot. When I was maybe 10 or 12, I had some really dark thoughts about just like doing horrible things to another, really evil thoughts. And I don't know where that's coming from. And I guess it sort of makes sense that like things come to me as a child and I just don't know where to put that.
Yeah. And it's something that is not talked about. People don't talk about this because they're ashamed to talk about it. And it's something that is pretty common. So just to share a little bit about a similar situation that I had in the beginning of my spiritual awakening, where I was having these visions of me like killing things. And I was just like, oh my God. And it scared the crap out of me. And it wasn't until I actually dove into a past life that I started seeing where those visions were coming from. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, this is something that in this particular past life, I was essentially like the muscle for a king. And this king made me go and kill people if they didn't pay their taxes. And I didn't want to do it, but he actually like threatened my family if I didn't do it. So I did it for the sake of my family. And I had a lot of grief and a lot of pain surrounding that. Mm-hmm. And so oftentimes with these past life things that we go through, we end up having these like shadows or these echoes of what happened in the past life. And basically what they're coming up for us is they're saying, hey, don't be afraid of this. This is not you. You have made different choices. You are making different choices. This is an echo of who you used to be, and you don't have to bring that into your present. So I want you to feel into that version of you that you were just talking about. And I want you to ask that version of you how she's feeling right now.
Confused and sad.
Can you ask her what she needs?
She just needs some love and compassion.
Yeah. Can you give that to her right now?
Yeah. I told her it's okay. And I give her a hug.
Beautiful.
And I think my soul just told me where that's coming from. Basically not knowing how to express the acknowledgement that my brother was born another child in the family and she was already abandoned, feeling lonely and abandoned, and then somebody else came into her life. I guess that's part of that. version of me that I never really looked at.
Yeah. And sometimes the fear and the anger and the abandonment and all of those lower energies, they can really turn into like the monster that is inside our head, right? Mm-hmm. Because if we don't deal with those types of emotions, or if we don't know how, because we're a child, it can really turn into something that is almost not understandable. Like our brains can't process how we're dealing with those emotions, right? Okay. So I want you to sort of connect into that darkness now. And how does it feel for you? Does it still feel scary? Does it feel like you can give it love? Does it feel strong, or does it feel weaker?
It doesn't feel scary. It feels like almost like a curiosity.
Yeah. And that is the biggest gift that you can give yourself, is to be curious about that shadow. And don't ignore it, because the more we ignore it, the bigger it gets. And once we're able to say, okay, you know what? Whatever I did in a past life, or whatever I did in this life, I can still love and forgive myself for it. That is where that beauty is within yourself. Because if you're able to balance that within yourself, then you're going to be able to lead that energy with others. Let me ask you about some of the other things you had mentioned in the beginning of the session. You were asking about the meeting, the figures. Okay. Do I know the figures she was talking about? You do. Okay. Is this the Council of Light? It is. Okay. Can you tell me how you felt when you were in the presence of that council?
I was just being shown that I was there, and I was in my hood, cloaked up with everyone else, and just, I think we were just starting.
Okay.
I was pulled back out really quick.
Okay. So what they're showing me is that like that was actually an initial meeting that you had with the Council of Light. You've worked with them before, but that was one of the first meetings that you've had with them. Okay. It's funny because I've connected with the Council of Light before, and I've actually channeled them before, but I really don't know a whole lot about them. So I can ask them why that was shown to you. It wasn't necessarily shown to her. It was simply the veil being removed for a brief moment, and she was able to see it. It's not that she wasn't supposed to see it. It's just that she just did. There was no particular reason why she needed to see that, although it is important that she knows that she does report to and speak to the Council of Light on a regular basis. The Council of Light serves many purposes. They serve the purpose of order. They serve the purpose of balance. And because this is one of her main functions as a soul, it made sense for her to meet them and to connect with them for her higher level of ascension. Most souls will not meet the Council of Light until they're nearly finished with their ascension process, or in their secondary ascension process. The Council does change from time to time with various different energies, but for the most part, it stays the same in its balance of energy. They help make decisions. They help guide. They help disseminate information. And they are also the receptors of information. So just as they are helping you, you are helping them. It is always the way. There is always that reciprocation, that back and forth, the exchange of energy. It is how all things must be. There is nothing further we want to tell you about the Council of Light at this time. We feel we have answered the questions. Okay, did they?
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense.
Cool.
I think you're absolutely right. The veil ripped open.
Fun. You got to see behind the curtain.
Yeah. And I get that one of the seraphims told me that, well, it's related in the sense that my small self feels minuscule and unimportant and unheard and invisible. And I feel like it's them telling me that I am important. I have a mission here in life.
Yeah.
What kind of angelic being am I working with here?
What kind of angelic are you, is what you're asking?
Am I allowed to know that?
You are allowed to know that, but Annette is not familiar with the various levels, so we will try to describe it as succinctly as possible. There are various levels of angelics. You have somebody who has completed their ascension process, who becomes an ascended master. Once they have become an ascended master, they can then move on to be an angelic. Then there are several levels of angelics that you can move through. And then there are other paths you can take. You can go on the track of becoming an archangel, seraphim, higher level being. You could even become one of the Council of Light. There are various other high level positions, if you want to call them that. It makes it easier for your human brains to understand. There are various different tracks that you can take based on your energy and based on who you are. and what you've experienced. It's very much like Annette was describing earlier about going to college and being in graduate school and then graduating and getting a job and doing the things that you're meant to do. It's very much the same structure, just a little bit more otherworldly, if you will.
So I haven't selected that yet at this point.
You are on your path at this time. You are in the third level of angelics at this moment, and you are on a particular path at this moment to become a seraphim. That is potentially going to change, though, depending on your experiences, but that is your current trajectory. There are a couple of other positions, if you will, that you're interested in that you would like to try and that you will try before you make a decision. You've never much been interested in staying on the other side and being an angel for somebody else or being a guide for another soul on the other side. It's not particularly exciting work for you. You like to have your feet on the ground and affecting the energies where it makes the most difference in the three-dimensional space on Earth or on other planets, because you've done this on other planets as well. There are all kinds of labels on your planet about what types of angels there are. I'm sorry to say most of them are incorrect. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter. You don't have to put labels on them. All you have to know is sort of where your energy is and what experiences you are having. And currently your experience is moving forward the way that it needs to. There is nothing you need to worry about. Just keep on remembering that you chose to be here. You wanted to be here, and you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, cool.
I cannot thank you enough. And very appreciative. We've got so much more to go through, but
I'm so glad. You're very welcome.
oh,
Okay, so I am going to close the Akashic Records. Thank you, Akula, my Akashic guide. Thank you, Council of Light. Thank you, all of my guides that I was channeling today. You've been super helpful. Thank you, Archangel Metatron and Archangel Sandalphon. The records are closed. The records are closed. The records are closed. Thank you. Okay, how do you feel?
a lot more clarity, a lot more grounded in understanding of what I've been going through. And the clarity really helps about my doubt. There's a lot of doubt and confusion, so I really appreciate this.
You're very, very welcome. Sending you tons of love. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
I want to thank Annabelle for being vulnerable and sharing her story with me today and allowing this to be broadcast on the podcast to help all of you. So there are several themes that I would like to address from this session. One of the biggest themes in the session is talking about your shadow and what to do about integrating shadow. And as it pertains to the session, we are talking about integration of shadow, clearing of shadow, while being an angelic. You might wonder why an angelic might need to clear shadow, because by definition, if they are in their angelic status, that technically you would think that no shadows would touch them, right? Well, that's not necessarily the case. As you saw through the example of her chakra system, usually when I see angelics, and yes, I have seen quite a few, believe it or not, in my sessions, there are indicators that let me know that the person has already gone through their ascension process. And having really, really clean chakras, as it pertains to their past lives, that's usually one of them. Now, it doesn't always mean that they have reached angelic status, but a lot of the times that's definitely what it means. The indicators sort of show me when I'm in the records, okay, so this person doesn't have a whole lot of energy that they need to move through or work through as it pertains to experiences in their previous lifetimes. So when that comes up and I see bits of darkness in the chakras, the way they show that darkness to me is almost like a translucency. So it's not like a big, dark, opaque spot. It's more translucent. So I can see that it is from this current lifetime versus from a previous lifetime. And so that's what we had here with Annabelle, which was a little bit of shadow regarding her current life. And that is something that she is trying to work through. So let me back up, because I want to talk a little bit about the angelic status and the amount of various sessions that I've had with people who have this energy. And I have actually had sessions with people who are archangels, which sounds a little bonkers given the fact that archangels are really popular. And of course, I work with archangels. I know a lot of other people do as well. So you might ask, how can archangels be incarnated as human? Just like any other powerful energy, they can be in various places at once. So there's a part of their energy possibly in that human, but then they have their energy in all sorts of other places at the same time. Okay. So the larger your energy field is, the more energy you have, the higher the vibration of the energy, the more sort of ability you have to be everywhere at once without diminishing the energy. There have been a lot of people that I have read for that have these big energies. And one of the questions that I have for my guides right now is, how long has the ability to sort of reach angelic status, how long has that been available to humans? Because obviously we go through all the different lessons that we're going to learn, and these are all chosen by us. We choose which lessons we're going to learn. We choose how deep in the darkness we're going to go. We choose all of it, right? And when we are starting to come back out of the darkness, out of those lessons, it's almost like steel being forged. It's stronger than it was before it was forged. So we've been doing this for millennia. The guides are telling me now that the ability to reach angelic status has always been there for us. The ascension process, the graduation process, if you will, as I referred to it in the session, is always available to us. It is always our decision how difficult, how much, what kinds of information, what we're going to go through. We choose all of that. If you want to take the forging steel analogy, we might decide to be a softer version of our energy, and maybe we don't want to go deep down into that shadow in order to have those experiences and learn from them. So in which case your energy field might not be as large or as expansive as, let's say, somebody else's, but that doesn't mean that it is any less effective. It doesn't mean that it's any less significant. It just means that for you and your experience, that is what you have chosen. Everyone sort of starts in the same way on this planet by getting acclimated to the planet and its density. And once you're acclimated to the density, then you dive into having your human experiences. Not everybody is going to have the experiences they're meant to. And sometimes that does delay the process of ascension for many. Your guides will send you as much help as possible if you are asking for it, if you are needing it. But ultimately, your guides will not interfere because you are asking for this experience. You are asking to have these experiences of learning to forge a bigger, brighter energy. One of the things that Annabelle struggled with is the fact that she has a lot of challenges with her family. This is something that we cover in a subsequent session, which will be in an upcoming episode. She struggles with a lot of the heavy energy, and that is something that a lot of angelics who are incarnated on the planet really have to deal with. A lot of what I've seen of the people who have already completed their ascension process, they have a hard time relating to other people. They have a hard time connecting to other people because other people are just simply not at their energetic frequency. And there are just simply fewer of them around on the planet than there are everybody else. A lot of times people who are angelics, this can also go for people who are from other galaxies, other planets originally, and spent a lot of time in that higher level energy. You can also feel this way as well, where you just don't fit here. You don't connect here to the people on Earth. So those are some of the biggest challenges you can have as an angelic on the planet. But some of the benefits to incarnating, to actually allow the knowledge that you have gained to be disseminated into the consciousness of all of the rest of the humans. You will sort of impart your lessons and the things that you've learned, what not to do, it helps the collective on a whole to be able to have this information so maybe they don't have to go through things the hard way as maybe Annabelle did or somebody else has. There's also the benefit of helping to balance the energy as Annabelle is doing. So that is her purpose in this life, is to balance energy. And it might seem like a really simple job, but if you really think about how much balancing is necessary right now on this planet, it's actually a really big job. And I feel like there are a lot of people on this planet trying to do this energetically. This sort of brings us to the topic of the darkness and that shadow. It's really hard when you're on this journey to come to the point of realization that everything is source energy. Everything, even the darkness, even the people that we find evil, even the people that we define as horrific, everything is source. It is just a different expression of source. When you consider that as an angelic, Annabelle is coming down here to help influence others, to help them with their ascension, it's just as logical to make the same assessment that if there is an energy that is incarnated now, that is diving down deep into the darkness, that darkness is going to influence the people that it's around. There are people who are in darkness right now who need to get out of it. And sometimes the only way out is to face that darkness and to embrace it and to love it. And I know that sounds nuts to say that you have to love your darkness, but you do, because it's in all of us. It's part of all of us. It's part of the whole collective. So you have to love it in order for it to calm down, so to speak, to not be so angry, to not be so retaliatory. However it expresses itself, that darkness, it needs to be acknowledged. I encourage you to not be afraid of your own darkness. Understand that it is a part of all of us and that it is something that you can manage in a way that allows for that balance that we're looking for within us. Because then it becomes a choice. It's all a choice. Because guess what? Here's the other thing that's really, really hard to wrap your brain around, is that there are no consequences. In the session, we talk a bit about karma, and I didn't fully go into it in the session because I didn't feel like I needed to. I do feel like I want to go into it a little bit now. Karma, to me, and this is just my definition, so if you don't resonate with it, feel free to just let it go. But my definition of karma is simply your own wounding, you beating yourself up over something that you've done. There is no outside force punishing you. The universe is not punishing you. It never has. God is not punishing you. Your angels are not punishing you. There is no consequence for your actions. You do what you do because you're either doing it out of fear or love. And you can ask yourself, what am I going to do? Am I going to do something out of fear, or am I going to do it out of love? Now, you may say that consequences do come regardless, because if your own shame, guilt, anger, sadness keeps you earthbound so you can't cross over, that would be considered a consequence. Well, sure, it's a consequence, but it's not necessarily imposed by anyone else. It's self-imposed. And that is based on your own feelings of who you are and what you've done. And the only thing that can help that is self-forgiveness. So forgiving self for evil thoughts, forgiving self for dark thoughts. And that's a really broad range. And I'm not even going to define those because it's different for everyone, whatever those would be. Now, I am not condoning anyone going out and doing something that is harmful to another in any way. Once you reach this level, so to speak, on your journey in your ascension process, if you are listening to my voice right now, there's a very good chance that you have gotten to a point where that would never even cross your mind in terms of taking an action against another being, another sentient being on this planet. It is about understanding that societal rules are in place for a reason. It is because until we are able to self-regulate and to operate from the standpoint of love always, 100% of the time, those societal consequences and rules are going to remain in place. Will they eventually not be needed? Sure, eventually. Once all of society agrees as a collective to operate from the space of love. But until then, this is part of our learning journey. This is part of our process. It's part of our ascension. It's part of Annabelle's ascension process in her secondary degree, if you will. It is allowing us to fine tune where we are. It is allowing us to understand who we are, darkness and all. Love who we are, darkness and all. Everything about ourselves. And this is what forges that big, beautiful energy, is to still face that darkness and still choose love. And it's not about spiritual bypassing. It's not about ignoring it. It's about embracing and understanding that it is part of me and still having that free will choice to say, you know what? I'm choosing to respond in this way because this is where my heart lies. These are big concepts. They're big concepts. They're big things to sort of wrap your brain around in terms of energies, souls, angelics, shadow work, but it's all important and it's all part of the process that you're on. So next time you have a dark thought, I want you to be curious about it in terms of, is this part of a past life? Is this something in the collective? Is this something I just watched on TV? Is this something I just read in the news? Is this somebody else's? Do I need to clear this from my energy field immediately? Because if you do, if it's something that is somebody else's or a collective, you can clear it yourself. It's all about intent. All you need to do is set the intention that you clear any energy that does not belong to you. And so it is. You can use Palo Santo, you can use sage, you can use light therapy, you can use incense, you can use anything you want, crystals. It doesn't matter. Those are all support tools. Your strongest energy is you. Your intention to shed any energy that does not belong to you is your biggest strength. Oftentimes when I do that before I go to bed, I like to say it out loud. Saying it out loud gives it more power. Usually I say, thank you, angels. Thank you, archangels. Thank you, all of my guides. Thank you to my higher self for clearing my energy. And I clear my energy of anything that does not belong to me. I clear my energy of anything that is not of highest divine light. And that is it. And then check back in with yourself to see how you feel then. And you can do this after you read a horrible news story, after you watch some violent something or other on TV. You can do this every single time because it can make a difference. It really can, especially when you're in one of the most sensitive places of your spiritual awakening. I know there were times when I was going through my awakening early on where I couldn't watch shows that I used to love because they were too violent. It was too much. The energy was too much for me to handle. So listen to yourself, listen to your body, and ask yourself, what energy is mine? What energy is somebody else's? What energy is collective? Your body will tell you. I want to thank you for tuning in this week. And if you have any questions, as per usual, don't hesitate to go to the contact form on my website and send me an email. Stay tuned till next week, where we have Julia back on for our post-session discussion. If you're enjoying this podcast, I really would appreciate it if you would give it a like, a thumbs up, wherever you happen to be listening. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss an episode. And if you need to get a hold of me, you can certainly reach me on my website at infinitesoullove.com. You can also reach me on all social media at infinitesoullove1111. That's on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. You can find this podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. Spotify, Apple, Pocket Casts, anything that you use to listen to podcasts, you can find the Akashic Recordings. Thank you so much, and don't forget to join us next week.